Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Wayne Eckerson. I'm your moderator and panelist. We're here to talk about modernizing data quality and master data management, how AI can automate the delivery of governed data. So we have a couple of good speakers with us today. First and foremost, Oliver Wagner is a senior research analyst at Eckerson Group and speaks all things data, an illustrious career in our industry. And then also our special guest, Michael Klaus, who's CEO of Ataccama, which offers integrated platform for doing data quality, data governance, and master data management. So without further ado, let me introduce Oliver, and you can take over the slides and give us some background for this important topic.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I appreciate it. Michael, looking forward to our discussion this afternoon, and welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for, quite honestly, a very important and foundational discussion. And the reason that I feel that is, analytics has become such an important part of how we're getting value out of data that we're gathering in our various business processes. And depending on where you are in your analytics journey, if you're just starting out with descriptive or diagnostic analytics, or you're all the way, doing predictive and prescriptive analytics. You're implementing machine learning in production, AI, and such. They all rely on the same foundation, and that foundation is around good data quality, good governance, MDM, all the difficult, not so sexy stuff. But the challenge is as we start getting into the realm of machine learning, the amount of data that we are now having to deal with is going to really show cracks in your data strategy. The amount of volume, and a lot of this really comes from the cloud as well too. The cloud has been an incredibly enabling technology for us to gather more data, given the interoperability, the virtually unlimited storage. We're hanging on to every little bit because we think, at some point it's going to have value. Well, then when we figure out the use case where we're going to have value, we're dealing with incredible volume, and likely you're dealing with tremendous velocity. A lot of that velocity has certainly been emphasized nowadays in reaction to COVID. There's been a ton of articles talking about how supply chains need to pivot to become more real time, to adapt to the incredible variability that we're seeing in patterns to get those supply chains back to steady state. We're dealing with more and more variety. There's a lot of creativity out there, and people are looking to further leverage machine learning to, what I like to say is, to advise, optimize, or automate their business processes, make them better. And again, more and more people in your environment are like, use this. So quite honestly, it can feel overwhelming. And if you're like the guy who's upside down right now because he didn't have a good data strategy in place and his data quality is all over the place, then you're done. There was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal talking about 50% of AI projects not making it into production. Michael, your thoughts on this, on what you're seeing?
Thanks, Oliver. So apparently the guy that's upside down, he's not riding the wave, right? The digital economy wave.
No, his data has now owned him.
So you're absolutely right. The so-called 3 Vs or maybe 4 Vs are kind of ever increasing. The one thing I would actually add is it's increasingly the decisions which are, let's say, at the end or on top of what we are doing with the data, right? The decisions, the analysis are more and more also done by machines rather than people, which creates kind of additional requirements both on the quality and I would say maybe less on the quality per se, right? Whether you have 99% or 99.5, it might not be a big difference, but it's more about the reliability of the data that the machines are using as their input. And of course, it has dramatically different needs in terms of the speed. And it's not just about the speed as such. It's also about the integration pattern, right? When you have some real-time data on the input somewhere, the decision-making process at the end ideally would want to have this reliable data on its input, and everything in between, all the transformations and the governance and the quality checks and maybe quality improvements, it needs to happen at the same speed with the same integration pattern in mind. So there is kind of additional driver, which apart from the characteristics of the data, the velocity, variety, volumes, there is additional kind of stress on the consuming side of what we're going to be talking here, and is the fact that the decisions are being made by machines. And I want to point out one other thing. What we are seeing increasingly, so there is this kind of speed, right? Speed with which you are able to actually process, cleanse, govern, make the data consistent so that it's usable by algorithms. The other speed is something else. It's the go to market speed, right? A lot of businesses, the people in the audience might or must be witnessing it already. The businesses are reorganizing themselves from the hierarchical, somewhat rigid organizations to agile in its core, right? Meaning, some people call it tribes, but in general, what you're doing is you're creating these multidiscipline teams that are given business mission, and then they just run with the mission. And they also need speed. There is also needs for speed, but from a different perspective, right? They need a speed of creating a new data source for their application or something like this, right? So they no longer have time for, okay, guys, so we will set up this project, and in 3 months we will do the analysis, and half a year down the road we might give you something, right? They don't have time for this. And this actually creates, oftentimes it does create the conflict between the business people, and especially I would say the new generation of impatient business people, and the people who, again, for good reasons, want to do the data management kind of properly, data management and governance. So there are, the fact that we have the machines consuming it, and the fact that the go-to-market kind of period or rhythm, I would even say, is also faster and faster.
On that last point, we think about the data platform architectures that we put into place that are schemaless, right? I think that certainly helps exacerbate that problem. When somebody has a new idea, it's like, okay, then how do I get this in? And again, thinking about step forward, we're just dumping data into data lakes. And if there wasn't the appropriate governance on that, to make that usable downstream, there are some huge challenges in that. I will say that in your first set of comments, talking about data quality and reliability, anytime I have consulted on or been involved in any machine learning efforts, I always go back to this quote by Peter Norweg, who's director of research at Google. It's foundationally true. Simple models and a lot of data trump more elaborate models based on less data, right? Don't try and be clever and fancy coming out of the gate. It's likely that your effort is better spent on your data and getting lots of data into that model than using a really complicated model to try and generate insights that just aren't in the data that you have. Work on the data. But what's interesting is, a few machine learning projects later, Peter also says more data beats clever algorithms, but better data beats more data. And I think this just really supports what you were discussing earlier, is for these to really work. And we know how sensitive these algorithms can be to perturbations in the data. So you better have your quality and reliability of that data as well wrapped up. And what's interesting is this is what most executives think that their data looks like in their enterprise, right? Customer data is all nice, neat. Everything looks good. We've got transactional data here. Everything is, very relational, structured, and such. There's the reality of what it looks like. It's just a huge pile of mess. But here's the thing: is there's a lot of things that contribute to this, right? Is if you're in, some of them are political. Right? You have people who hoard data. It's not being shared within the environment. There's politics. I own the data. No, you don't. I'm not. No governance, of course. M&A, sometimes this stuff, just when you're bringing companies together, and we've seen a lot of consolidation across different industries. But I would say that a lot of it comes from poor planning and the lack of foresight. What have you seen from customers coming to you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I want to say something about Peter Norvig. It's actually interesting. I think he started as actually director of search, right? The R&D for search. And I think what he said initially is kind of in line with what kind of is known throughout the industry. And I actually did study AI at university quite a few years back. And the thing is that the algorithms, at least until, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 5 years back, the algorithms that we used to have even 20 years back, they haven't changed dramatically between, 20 years back and today. What has changed, however, is the data volumes. So I think his first kind of epiphany was that, hey, we can still use the algorithms that we all knew, but actually now it's becoming useful because we have so much data. And of course, Google does have a lot of data, especially from search. By the way, there is an interesting, it's a side story, but if any one of you is watching the self-driving cars race in general sense, you might know that Tesla bet everything on cameras in the visual spectrum and some infrared, but they don't do lidar, right? The laser sensor basically that can sense 3D in general. Whereas others, including Google, they actually are betting on lidar. So Musk, in that sense, Tesla and Musk are saying, we're going to be good with the more simple models in general, with much more data. And the fact that it's, order of magnitude cheaper technology is something else. Whereas Google and others are still kind of in that area. We need the better data in terms of other data than the pure cameras. Anyway, so it's just about where his quotes might be coming from. Now onto the what company thing. You're absolutely right, and yeah, I'll let you talk about this article.
The interesting thing is we certainly say a lot of that, and part of that there's truth in jest, right? Now that's certainly a funny visual, but the truth of it is this was a 2019 PwC study, and I think the title it just speaks for itself, right? There's obviously a recognition that their efforts are being hindered. And what's interesting is, as part of the survey, these are their obstacles to monetizing, to getting value out of their data. Look at that. Number one, with these 300 executives, poor data reliability. Exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been around as a company for some time, and this is actually what inspired us to start the company in the first place, right? Our first customers were retail banks who decided, and there was little AI back then. It was the next best offer and propensity to buy and some kind of machine learning based scoring. And those companies decided they'll do this. They will, because of that, they'll upgrade their data warehouse. Or even back then, it was already becoming little real time. So it was data warehouse and ODS. And of course, when they started to get first results, they learned the hard truth that the data is not in a good shape in many ways, right? I would even say there was nothing related to the cables on that picture, but all of it was related to human error or some kind of integration problems, inconsistencies. Typically, when it comes to customer data, you have multiple sources, so you need to figure out which sources is the right one. You need to be able to map the records together, stuff like this. So this is what brought us into the business in the first place. And actually, onto your previous slide about what companies expect, I think the situation has changed a little bit. A couple of years ago, even 5 years ago, we would come to an organization, quite kind of, I would say, advanced, progressive organization, and they expected exactly what you had on the slide, the nicely ordered, clean data on customer, product, transactions, whatnot. We used to have a great sales tool, which was data quality assessment. So we would tell them, we don't think your data is that great as you think, but let us do a data quality assessment, which took like 2 weeks. We would run our profiling. We would then talk to business users, and then we would show it to the business managers. This is what your data really looks like. And there was, without exception, there was some kind of tension. Created always some kind of tension. Sometimes they didn't believe us, didn't want to believe us. That they went back to their, let's say, data people. They confirmed it. I think it has changed. Actually, I think as the popularity of data in the business kind of management of companies has grown, there is the awareness that the data probably is not in the greatest shape for various reasons. And also that there is the awareness that you have to start taking care of the quality of the data in a very general sense. Otherwise, it deteriorates, right? The entropy in data kind of grows. So you have to be taking care of it. So what we did from these days, when we used to come into the organization and do data quality assessment, we actually changed it, and we are now leaving it to, let's say, the champions within organizations to actually do it by themselves. If you don't mind, I'll switch to a few slides here.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So what I hope you're seeing, this is our website, which is not that important, but what I wanted to show is we are now, instead of us doing the data quality assessment, we leave it to whoever, head of data warehouse or a kind of strong data analyst, to do it by themselves. And the way you can do it is you come to our website, you click on the Try Now button, and you have two options. You have an option to download. If you're, for example, regulated industry or something, you can download a tool which we call DQ Analyzer, or the easier but SaaS version is online application. And what it does actually, it allows you to see in a very, very effortless way what your data looks like, what's in your data. And you literally, all you need to do is you connect the two to a data source, and you say profile, and you don't have to do anything else. And of course, it will figure out the technical metadata and whatnot. That's not that interesting, but it will do a few more interesting things. It will, of course, figure out all the quality characteristics, outliers and patterns in data. But moreover, in the current version, it will figure out the business domains in the data, which we believe, and I'll talk about it later, but to us, this is the way to go. It's leveraging AI to make things for organizations and people much easier. So in this case, the user basically connected to a data source and decided to profile his CRM party table. And regardless of the attributes or anything, the tool, or actually the platform, but this part of the platform is actually our freemium offering. It will apply AI to figure out what business domains or other interesting facts it sees in the data without you having to do anything else. And then if you have our catalog, it will appear in the catalog, but let's not get into it now. So the awareness of the need for quality and reliable data definitely has grown. Companies are dealing with it in one way or another. What we are doing, we are saying, here is a very powerful but very simple to use technology that will do it for you, basically.
Hey guys, we got a question that came in. I kind of need to kind of go back to the top. The question is, what are the top 5 factors making data poor, and vice versa? What can make the data increase its value and credibility? I think we're kind of addressing that here, but top 5 factors. I would put poor data entry practices number one. And then the duplication of data, especially customer data, product data in multiple systems, gets out of sync. That's a huge issue. And anytime you move or migrate the data, it can get out of sync. Yeah. And then just fragmentation, mergers and acquisitions. That's always a huge issue. And then just people building their own versions of data, spreadsheets, or even with BI tools, betting rules into those about what things mean and things like that. That's kind of the political thing, or the siloing of data that creates problems. In terms of the, how do we make it better? I think that's what we're talking about here. I think the abridged version of this presentation is use AI and metadata to integrate stuff.
So
why don't you move on here?
Just one thing I wanted to add, Wayne, sorry. You kind of mentioned it. Anytime you move data, you're creating inconsistencies. We see a lot of problems in quality kind of purely resulting from the technical integration, right? You have 200 character long string in one system, and you are migrating it or integrating into another system, and it only has 50 characters. And oftentimes the developer didn't bother. He just cuts the 200 records into 50, and that's it, right? And it's just one stupid example. There are many kind of subtle other things that can cause it.
Absolutely.
And Wayne, I would agree. You're interesting. We pointed out all the challenges that we see in there. I would say, data entry is a huge problem because nobody ever thought about it going into it, regardless of what industry you might be in. It was just about getting it done, getting it operational, and now come and find out that there's more value in this data to make our better business processes better. And so now we need tools in place. I would also submit that stewardship is an important component in solving this, and you need to give those stewards good tools. So this is a phenomenal framework that you came up with. Talking about the data stack, right? And so we have our applications, we have our business processes in the cloud infrastructure generating all sorts of data. It's going into our data platform. And, at the top end of that, we have analytics. This is extracting the valuable insights that we're working back on the business process. To make that all happen is this data management layer. This is the hard work layer. This is this is what makes you successful in that analytics layer. And we look at the capabilities that are key to a data management platform. It's integration, it's governance, quality, data engineering, that data catalog, privacy and protection, ingestion and master data management. And these are all very important components. But, one of the challenges, and we talked about this as a group as we were preparing for this webinar, is one of the challenges is there's lots of tools that are in the environment, right? And so there's a certain degree of isolation with respect to those tools and users becoming frustrated in getting all of this stuff to work together. What exacerbates the problem is that wave of data that we were talking about at the earlier, the speed at which that data is coming at us, the requirements of insights that we need, but the sheer volume of it. If anybody who's been in this industry for any length of time, and even if you're working on a descriptive analytics project, right? We understand is that, again, we talked about quality and availability of that data, reliability of the data, how important it is. But we also know how much work it is to get it to that level. Now think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orders of magnitude greater volume of data. It is humanly impossible to be able to use some of the old approaches that we had. It's just ripe for AI and automation. And it really is the automation component. The thing is, there's so much intelligence that has to happen in these processes around these particular disciplines that you have to incorporate some level of AI in that. Michael?
Yes. Thanks, Oliver. This is our kind of core belief. If I go back to the previous questions, right, what are the causes of the data problems, right, and what are the cures? So interestingly enough, let's say the theory or the best practices is here, right? There is a body of knowledge for data integration. There is a body of knowledge for data quality management. Part of it is basically single view of the key data entities, which is called master data management. There is a whole field of narrowly kind of meant data governance, meaning the stewardship, ownership processes, stuff like that. There is yet another kind of perspective, which is data privacy. So all these things have kind of evolved over the last, 15 years, where the earliest and the latest was a couple of years ago. So it is there. Unfortunately, it has somewhat developed independently, which also results that in what you have on this diagram, that you typically end up with variety of technologies and even various teams taking care of those aspects of doing a good data management and governance in a broader sense. And I think it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And that's why we have always been, as a company, we've always been big believers in letting the machines do the work, right? So even our profiling a couple of years ago, it was pretty powerful in terms of you didn't have to define the technical metadata, nothing. It would figure out everything, right? Now it figures out much more on the business side and the quality side. And the latest kind of jump for us is towards the integration of what you have on this diagram, applying AI, and in a more specific sense, machine learning, meaning the pattern-based induction of rules and everything, but also applying AI in terms of connecting those features of data management or subdomains of data management, because not all kind of knowledge can be extracted from the data itself. Some knowledge is just best practices. It is accumulated over the years. So we are big believers in integrating these disciplines, integrating it also on the level of knowing how data quality depends on reference data management or master data management, how it plays together, right? Typically, you don't have that. So it's about automating it using machine learning, meaning pattern using the expertise, using the accumulated know-how, encoding it. And at the end of the day, you should be able to really, from one central point, you should be able to do the data management much better and much faster in these two kind of aspects that I talked about at the beginning.
So I think there is a certain degree of irony that I find in these solutions now. And that is, as I talked about earlier, machine learning is there to advise, optimize, and automate a business process. And so there's a certain degree of irony in automating the business processes that you are in need to automate your other business processes. But if you look at all of these different use cases and all the different applications in the data management space, a data anomaly detection and remediation, right? And it's providing that intelligence to say this particular data element is out of scope, and it recommends, and if it's well trained enough, can say, hey, this is how we're going to remediate it. We look at automated data lineage, right? We understand the patterns of where the data is coming in, what those relationships are. Automated data profiling, understanding and then of course building that metadata. And then, of course, then further down the business process, that metadata is used to go ahead and aid in some of the other governance processes. That this is what the system needs to understand about the data in order to be able to provide these recommendations, data matching recommendations, for example. And, this is such a key area in customer data and, avoiding that data duplication. When I think about when I was at TGI Fridays, for example, we would have multiple repositories of customer data. How do you unify them together? How do you know that is the same customer? That is from a value perspective, it's huge, right? It impacts so many downstream processes by having that one golden record.
Yeah, and sometimes it goes the reverse too. If you can define your rules up front, in a data governance tool, whether it's a business glossary, then with AI and automation, you can generate data quality rules and transformation rules and apply them at the point of need, right? And then automate the workflow to remediate. So all this work in the middle of the stack just took enormous amounts of time. And, we have a bunch of data heroes working in the back room, toiling day and night to fix the data so it can be displayed properly on a dashboard. Hopefully we can bring those people to the light of day with some of this automation and AI.
That's a great point, Wayne. But, not only is it from a workload perspective, but then there are problems that you can actually address, right? There were certain problems that were just too big to address because you didn't have these capabilities in place. So now all of a sudden there's new problems that can be solved because you've found a way to actually overcome the volume and speed of data that you have.
Yeah, you free up these data heroes from just fixing the data to actually helping the company use the data in strategic ways. Like, let's create a 360-degree view of customers, or build intelligent supply chains, or do digital transformation. All that requires clean, consistent data and clean, consistent, unified metrics and master data. Without that, you can't do anything strategic. So
we do have another question from the audience. And the question is, what is the standard methods and recommended ways to approach this?
I think that's a good segue to your next slide. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, I think you're right. And again, this is another great framework. But within, when we look at the data management platform, and we look at the user base that we're trying to bring together, and apply to the problem, and the particular business processes and areas of management that they're going to be involved in. This is a very typical segmentation of roles and responsibilities. Having that sit all on a unified platform and then looking at the opportunities to be able to advise and automate those, there's a tremendous amount of benefits that come from that, both technical and business, right? The improved integration, we've already addressed the automation from a work saving perspective, and then it's the only way to actually keep up with the level of volume that you're going to be dealing with in big machine learning problems. And this is I want to hit on scalability, because quite honestly, not only is that a technical problem in my mind, it's a business problem. There are Absolutely. Lots of customers that I have consulted with that their growth is limited because their technology will not allow them to scale to take on more customers, right? They would provide a horrible user experience to their customers, which quite honestly is a bigger issue than anything else, in my opinion. So that scalability is so important. You talked about it earlier, Michael. Faster delivery. Got to be agile. We've got to respond to this stuff. And interesting. And I love the total cost of ownership. That's kind of an underappreciated aspect of this. One, Wayne, to your point, is being able to allocate resources to activities that are driving more value to the business rather than supporting the business, and activities that really should be automated that are commodity activities. That is a huge component into this equation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Michael, I think you have some slides that you want to show us on kind of how Ataccama approaches this.
Yeah. So this the slide that you have here, it's very consistent with how we see the world. Obviously, the one thing I wanted to kind of again comment or make it much more kind of emphasize it. We keep talking about how we need to make things faster and higher quality, etc. But it's I think we are at a point where the quantity in terms of how fast you can do it, how it scales in terms of data volumes, etc., is actually turning into quality, right? In other words, if you cannot scale it, you basically will hit the wall, right? On the example with the data heroes who are fixing the data, your machine learning based credit scoring will not wait for anyone to fix the data, right? Obviously, and the customers won't wait for it. It needs to be automated, right? So just to comment on that, and if we kind of take a step back and look at it from a higher perspective, if you don't mind, Oliver, I'll again share my screen.
Hey guys, while you're doing that, a great question came in. Says the question is, one of the biggest challenges I have faced is to link the data quality issues to a real business problem that comes with a cost. In other words, it's a great idea in theory to clean up data, but how do we justify that cost if we can't link it to a business problem? Have you had any experience doing that, justifying the data quality issue?
It's of course almost, I would say, the key question, right? Our experience is this. What it takes is a combination of top-down and bottom-up approach. What we've seen is that organization where those initiatives are successful, starting with the funding, but then successful in terms of delivering value, is where you have more or less kind of established or pronounced sponsorship from the top, whether it's CEO or CFO or CMO or these days Chief Digital Officer or Chief Data Officer. you need to have this sponsorship, which basically says to the organization, guys, this is as important as our KPI for whatever conversion on the marketing campaign. The data is on the same level of importance. So you need to have this. And then what we are seeing and what we are kind of promoting also is when you're starting even a bigger cross-company initiative, you should include a kind of clearly valuable business case in the first increment of implementing the whatever solution, whether it's data governance, data management, something. To give you an example, very often when we go into discussion about cross-company, cross-enterprise, whatever data quality solution or mastering solution, there is always this one quite apparent business driver which will bring value, whatever, 6 months down the road, whether it's building single customer view for the new application or whether it's BCBS 239 regulation or something like this. It always helps to start the whole thing in the kind of on the right foot, I would say. That's our experience.
Yeah, another related question came in that says, how do you quantify data quality in terms of ROI or cost savings?
It is actually quite doable because you are able to quantify the actual data quality problems, and then we even have as part of the tool you can assign some value to the problem and it will calculate it for you. But it's the easy part, right? The difficult part is, but it's perfectly doable. You need to sit down with the business people and you need to have a discussion about, let's say, each type or category of a data quality problem, and then you assign it a value, and then you are able to express it in terms of dollars.
Yeah, example I can.
Yeah. Go ahead,
An example I can give from my own experience is when we were looking at customer data at Fridays, right, and we're sending out vast email promotions, and the cost of each one of those emails has a cost associated with it, and you can spend a lot of money when your customer base is in the millions. And if that's not going to a valid address, or you're sending it to the same person 3 times because they're trying to game the loyalty system or what have you, you can actually go, if you have a good understanding of the costs in what the data quality impact will be just on that particular business process. So again, it really, to approach this, I always say, okay, let's look at the business processes. Let's look at the costs associated with it, and then also look at the revenue that's generated with it. What does it mean to have a better conversion rate because you know more about the customer? And this kind of really gets into a lot of the marketing analytics and such. But it's quantifiable.
So that stuff it's all very important to quantify that. I would not argue with that. I'm not sure how persuasive it is at the higher levels of the organization, but what I have seen that works at the higher end is when the executives get a black eye. Like, here's a real example. A regional bank in the Southwest sent out a direct mail piece, and one of them went to the Mexican consulate, and it was addressed, "Dear Mexican." And the next day, the CEO got a call from the head of the consulate, who was just livid at being treated like that, so insensitively. So that caused the CEO to actually, of a bank, to send a note out to everyone that said, and I quote, data is as important an asset to our company as cash. So when they get hit between the eyes and get a black eye, that really turbocharges your data quality and data governance initiatives. But we should move on because we're going to run out of time here.
We should, but I have to say one other thing, because we are only talking about the negative kind of perspective of the quality, right, and availability of the data. But at least until now, we've seen more of these initiatives being driven by a new opportunity. And if I give you an example, right, we're working with this one of the major retailers in Canada, and they not only have a retail, but they have a financial, institution. They have car repair shops and stuff like that. About 10 businesses around it, right? And of course, there is a huge opportunity when you start seeing the customers of these businesses as customers of this one entity, right? Rather than individually. And until you do something dramatically different compared to what you were doing, meaning bringing all the data together, making sure it's of high quality, making sure it's integrated and mastered in real time, you are not able to get this experience, the customer experience that you want, right? So again, doing the quality in general, more general sense, right, is an enabler. It's not just fixing things. It's enabling new business opportunities. So if I may,
please,
if I may, to kind of follow up on your slide here, Wayne, and I need to.
Yeah, this is good. We had a question come in that says, how and where does Ataccama fit in the existing hybrid data platform architectures?
Yeah, in short, very well. I don't know if the question is meant technically or let's say conceptually, but the platform can actually run both, of course, on-prem, in the cloud, or in a combined hybrid environment. And when I'm saying run, I really mean it can run wherever the data is. And this way, I think it's a great kind of, again, advantage or even differentiator to other platforms. Maybe if the person asking the question wouldn't mind, I would take if it's more technical, we can talk about it later offline. So what I wanted to follow up with. So we talked about the automated, basically we call it one-click profiling, right? When our customers have multiple modules of the platform, this profiling information gets right into the catalog, and then of course you can search through it. The tagging that you see is the kind of value-added information which was figured out by the machine learning algorithms. The blue ones are, let's say, the first level. The red ones are one level up in the hierarchy. So GDPR is the European term for PII data and stuff like that. So if I kind of follow up on the slide that Oliver had, we keep talking about, so far we kept talking about data quality and data mastering and integration and whatnot. I think it's kind of time to stop talking about the individual disciplines and talk about the actual business value of what we are doing. And the business value is this. With our technology, we are giving organizations a way to gradually build multi-purpose data layer, which is ingesting data in various forms on the input, integrating it, fixing it, monitoring the quality, governing it in terms of policies and everything, and providing set of APIs on the output to which anyone can connect and use it for any purpose. It can be machine, it can be user, it can be analytical environment, anything like this. So this is kind of the umbrella value that we are providing. And in terms of modules, it consists of the modules that we talked about: discovery, profiling, catalog, glossary, which is now grown into enterprise metadata management, data quality management, master data management, dedicated module for reference data, and actually big data processing and data integration. If we look at it from a different perspective, on the left you have the data sources. The blue stuff in the middle is the value that we are providing, data acquisition, then all the data curation, everything we talked about. And on the right side, you have the APIs to provide the high quality, consistent, governed data and metadata. It's the more we have the machines as consumers, the more we need to provide kind of precise, rich metadata with it. And then you have the business value creators on the right side of the diagram. For those of you who are kind of interested in the new terms, there is the new term which is kind of emerging or re-emerging. It's called data fabric. So what we are offering is really enabler or big part of your data fabric, if that's how your organization is calling it. And then you can do all kinds of things when you have that, right? You can do even the tactical initiatives. Yeah, you have those agile business teams that need to have a new source for their self-care mortgage app, right? You can use this platform to quickly spin this new data source, but the data source will be governed. It will be consistent with your data management and data governance standards and everything. It won't be some kind of rogue project somewhere on the side, which is typically what is now happening, right? So on the right side of this slide, we have these more tactical initiatives or migration, right, as part of M&A or upgrading your one of your systems. So those are, let's say, the more tactical. On the right side, we have the more strategic initiatives, like, we need to have a data quality monitoring across the whole enterprise, and we want to do it in consistent way across the whole company, etc. This is quite technical slide. I hope there are at least few people in the audience who will appreciate. I will not talk about it in detail. What I want to emphasize are those 3 or 4 blocks in the middle. So the way we built the platform, or the new generation of the platform, we built it kind of from the center outwards, so that it is built for the automation. And there are basically 3 components, 3 enablers. One is what we call metadata core. So all the metadata that we ingest, meaning data structures and everything, but also all the metadata that the platform generates, the enrichment of the metadata, is stored and available it's actually a repository and a server, which we call metadata core. And why it is so important is because we are using the metadata for so-called operationalization, which is the automation. Then we have something similar for the machine learning, and it is that we have a centralized AI core again, and centralized storage of all the machine learning data, which includes all the user interactions, because those are absolutely critical for the machine learning algorithms to be able to learn from user feedback. To give you a very simple example, I have shown you the profiling can figure out the business domains. Of course, the user has a way to provide feedback. No, this is not a zip code, this is something else. And the more users are providing some kind of feedback, the more the machine learning algorithm improves, and next time it will provide better suggestion. So there is the algorithmical core, and then there is AI storage, and it's actually machine learning type of AI. And next to it, we have something which we call expert engine, which is the encoded knowledge about data management best practices. Again, to give you a very simple example, something that the machine learning AI will never figure out, but we know it, people know it, is this. You have a field which contains country codes. If you want to improve the quality of that field, of that attribute in your database of transactions, you probably want to have a lookup table with the correct country codes. This is known best practice. No machine learning will figure it out. This is the type of stuff that we have encoded in our expert engine. So in other words, when the platform will be suggesting a data quality rule for this type of field, it will already create the lookup table, and it will send it as a workflow request to a data steward to start managing this correct version of these values. So these three cores are actually the base of why we think we are actually ahead of everyone else in the industry in terms of the automation. And the one thing that is of course important, which we decided to rebuild, is policies across the whole platform. I'll talk about it later. We talked about the differentiators. So if I fly really briefly through the platform, we talked about the profiling, everything, all the metadata, including the explicitly available, data models and everything. All the derived metadata, all the configuration is stored in our catalog. And the catalog has two functions. One is for the operationalization, for automation of everything. Of course, it has a very nice and easy to use user interface for data people, right? Data stewards, data engineers, data scientists. It has automated data quality. We talked about it. It, of course, has lineage with data quality. There is a very sophisticated data quality management module. It's not some naive, lightweight data quality. It's very sophisticated data quality management. It has two flavors. One is the rule-based, but the rules are suggested by AI. And another one is anomaly detection, where you don't need to define any rules at all. Then it has heavy-duty master data management module, which is used to master products, customers, etc. As you can picture, it is also tied to the catalog. So when you have some data in the catalog, the platform can suggest these 5 tables should be subject to mastering. There is a lot of theory behind MDM. I just want to show you a few screenshots. This is your kind of homepage. This is AI-generated matching proposals. Even in of course, because everything is integrated, when you are in MDM, you can take a look at the quality of the data that you're dealing with. And the one thing that, again, historically has been done separate from everything else is the policy management. So what we did, we built it into the platform. And the way it works is you define your policies, and then anytime anyone touches the data within the platform and outside of the platform, and touches meaning its user, its machine, the policy is applied. This is how you define the policy, basically in a very business user-friendly way, and then it's translated to access restrictions or anonymization of the data that you're dealing with. So this was really, really brief fly through the platform, and I'm handing it over back to you, Oliver, for the remaining 2 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. We could probably eat up everybody's afternoon discussing all the capabilities, and I'd love to have another discussion just around AI versus policy rules engine. There's a lot of neat work that's going on in that space. But for our audience, thank you very much. Again, in summary here, you obviously can tell from our discussion and probably your own experiences that the cloud and machine learning are just hammering enterprises right now with volume and velocity and the speed of requirements coming through. Quite honestly, the current crop of data quality and governance and MDM platforms that are out there just can't keep up with this. Right? It's just the orders of magnitude that we're dealing with this. So, and an incredible irony is we're looking to the same technologies. The time is right now for AI and automation to handle a lot of these business processes to, again, free up resources to approach other value-driving activities. And as Wayne mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities here to just drive value and protect your business. by making sure that you have a solid foundation. So I want to thank you, Michael. I've enjoyed the discussion. I think the audience probably learned a ton from your presentation as well. And again, my thanks to the audience hanging in there and spending an hour on this Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Wayne. And of course, thanks to the audience. We still have some questions. If anyone is interested, I can hang out a little longer. We can talk about it. Alternatively, we can put the answers in writing and we can distribute it via Eckerson Group. Whatever is the best practice, Wayne. At
this point, Michael, we have to turn off the webinar, and so we'll answer those in writing.
Okay.
But I want to thank you as well for participating. Good discussion. I hope people like this interactive format. I think the bottom line is that data management's sexy again, and it's vital to do any of the sexy things that companies do want to do. So with that, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.